It is a great honor to be the first speaker on this international conference, the 25th International Holistic Vision Conference. You're all my friends, and it's great to have all my friends here today listening to my speech. Thank you for your attention, and thank you, Amelia, for such a kind way of introducing me. It was amazing, wasn't it? Today we're going to be talking, obviously, about Bates' method and ophthalmology. As you will probably know already, all my students, all the people that have been in my courses, I'm always talking about anatomy, diseases, ophthalmology, because these are very interesting things if you want to actually educate people. Although Dr. Bates was an ophthalmologist, today, ophthalmology and visual educations are not walking hand in hand, and this is a pity because they could cooperate a lot and in a very good way. Today, ophthalmology, in an academic perspective, although there are very important advances in terms of surgery and the way we deal with diseases, and this is important, we should not ignore this, lacks, nevertheless, the more humanistic side, where the patient or the customer sometimes is someone who is not just a walking disease, is a human being that feels, that thinks, that has a life that has to be developed in the best way possible. And this is where we can help them. We can offer something in our everyday life practice. We can give them the opportunity of profiting from what they have and not focusing on what they do not have. Because when you are sick and you think, I cannot, I am sick, I don't have, I lack, that's not the way to go. If you want to actually focus on things, what do I have? What can I do? What do I know how to do? What can I actually do with that information? And how can we discover all the things that we actually have? And usually it's a lot more than we thought at the very beginning. And that's the method, helping us to develop all these different capabilities and skills that we usually do not take into consideration. From my point of view, as a professional, as a professional ophthalmologist, I see patients that have already received the message, there's nothing more to do, your disease has no solution, you will never find a cure. They are tired, going from one practice to another, and obviously they do have sometimes very serious issues. And sometimes they are uncomfortable, they feel different problems, they have difficulties in their everyday lives, in the quality of life, and everything that might help them even a little bit will be of great value to them. And here we can help them. Sylvia already knows that there's a lot of people that do not have a lot of eyesight, but nevertheless, by using the Bates method, they are happy to live again. This is all that really matters, to be of service to people, to help them to develop the potentials and capabilities that they have. And sometimes they don't even know they have. They don't know that they can see more colors or that they can have a wider and broader visual field, that they could have a different perspective in terms of seeing life. And that's why I would like to talk a little bit about ophthalmology. What is the eye? What kind of diseases are the more frequent ones, so that you can have an idea of how can we help our patients. If we know what glaucoma is, what cataracts are, if we know which part of the eye is affected by these diseases, we might understand better what can we do to improve these situations. There are plenty of tools. We just need to help people to develop what they can actually develop. So let's start, if that's okay with you. First of all, here we have an image quite clearly where we see the eyes on the anterior part of the brain cortex. We have the optic nerves that go way into the brain. They go into the optic chiasm. There's a lot of information here. We're not going to go there, but there's plenty of book and information on these. Then we have the optic radiations that reach up to the calcarine cortex on the back of the brain, where we actually have the vision. And this is the whole visual cortex, if you like, and the eyes. We're having some technical issues. No big deal here. Don't worry.
No pasa.
Well, some help, please.
Ahora.
Finally.
Ahora, sí, no sé qué es que tengo. ¿Puedo hacerlo?
Can I do it from here?
Vale.
Thank you.
En la sección primera
Now,
vamos a hablar
in my first
ver
part of my
qué cosas
presentation,
afectan al ojo
I
como
would like to
inflamaciones o
mention the different
degeneraciones.
inflammations and degenerations that
Tenemos
can
en los
affect the eyes.
párpados
We have the lids,
blefaritis,
like
que es una
blepharitis,
inflamación del borde del
that is
párpado,
the
los
inflammation of the
orzuelos,
border. We have the
que son
styes,
esos bultos que
that
salen en
are
los
these
párpados,
little
y los
bumps that we
chalacios,
get
que
on
es
the
cuando
lids,
un
and the
orzuelo se
chalation
enquista. Todos
when
conocéis
you
estos
have a
síntomas,
stye that
todos
gets
habéis
chronic.
tenido a alguien cercano
You have
que tenga
always
esto.
known this information. You
En
have
las
suffered them or
conjuntivitis
have seen people that
hablamos
have
de las
suffered them.
infecciosas,
We
de
have
las traumáticas, de las
conjunctivitis, we have
irritativas,
infectious,
y
traumatic,
en la
and
córnea
irritative
podemos
ones.
encontrar
In terms of the cornea, we have
o
all the kinds of
degeneraciones.
inflammations due
No
to
hace falta
infections
saber
or
la
degenerations.
infección de qué es,
You
porque
don't need
nosotros
to
no vamos a
know the
tratar,
cause of the infection. We're
vamos
not
a
going to
aliviar
treat that. We're going to
estas
alleviate
condiciones del
the
ojo.
conditions of the
Y para
eye.
ello, ¿cómo
And
podemos ayudar?
how can we do that? How
Pues
can
en
we
las
help?
inflamaciones lo más
Well, in
importante es la
inflammations,
relajación
it's very
y la
important
visualización.
relaxation
Tenemos dos
and
herramientas
visualization.
magníficas
We
de
have two
relajación, que
fantastic
son el
relaxation
palming y, como veis, el
tools,
sunning.
palming and sunning.
Y la visualización,
And then, in terms of
es
visualization,
una poderosa
this
herramienta
is a
para
very
trabajar con
powerful,
cualquier cosa
potent
en nuestro
tool
cuerpo. Nuestra
to
mente
work
tiene más
with our
poder
whole body.
del que
Our
nosotros
mind
creemos.
has more power
Si
than we can
visualizamos
imagine.
las
If we
cosas
can
como tienen que
visualize
estar, cómo
things
van
the way
mejorando,
they
cómo
should
se van
be,
sanando,
the improvement,
finalmente
the
sucederá.
curing process,
Se puede
this will
visualizar haciendo
happen in
palming,
the
se puede
end.
visualizar
We
haciendo
can
sunning, o se puede
do palming,
visualizar
we can do sunning,
simplemente
we
meditando.
can meditate
Otras
to
técnicas
visualize
naturales que
better.
podemos utilizar en estas
Other
inflamaciones
different
es la
techniques that we
hidroterapia,
can use,
técnica
natural
muy,
techniques. We
muy,
can
muy
use
antigua,
hydrotherapy. This is an
que consiste en
antique
alternar
technique that
salpicados de agua a
means
los
to
ojos,
alternate hot and cold water splash
alternando
on
agua
the eyes.
caliente y agua
So
fría.
you alternate both
Diríamos
hot
que
and cold water,
25 salpicados de
splashing,
agua
sprinkling
caliente
it like
seguidos de
25
25
hot
salpicados de
water
agua fría,
splashes with
y volvemos a
25 cold
repetir.
water splashes, and then we repeat the whole process all
Es
over again.
una acción sobre los
This
tejidos,
is an
sobre
action.
el
This has an
sistema
action on the
vascular,
tissues,
y
on the
ayuda
vascular
mucho a
system that
relajar
helps
los
to
tejidos,
relax
a
tissues,
mejorar la
to
irrigación,
improve
el aporte de
the blood
nutrientes
flow,
y a
the
evacuar las toxinas,
irrigation and the flow of nutrients,
tonifica
to
y relaja.
eliminate toxins, and to
Otra
relax the
cosa
whole
que podemos
area.
sugerir es la utilización de
Something
la
else that we
fitoterapia,
can suggest
el
is
tratamiento por las
phytotherapy.
plantas.
This is
Esto
a
no
treatment
necesita
using
receta
plants.
médica,
You don't
y
need a
cualquiera lo puede hacer
prescription
en
for
su
this,
casa.
and you can do it at
Entre las
home.
plantas más
You
utilizadas
can
para
use,
calmar los
among
ojos, se
others,
encuentra la
the
eufrasia,
euphragsia,
la manzanilla,
the
el
chamomile,
anciano,
the
y tantas
cornflower,
otras.
as many others that are out there.
El glaucoma.
Now, glaucoma.
El glaucoma.
Glaucoma,
Es la ceguera silenciosa que
that
llamamos los
silent
oftalmólogos.
blindness,
El
as
glaucoma,
ophthalmologists
todos
call it.
conocemos algo.
We
Siempre
all
hay
know a
alguien
little
cerca
bit
de
about it.
nosotros
We
conocido
all
que
know
puede tener
someone
glaucoma.
that has or might have glaucoma.
El glaucoma refiere un aumento de
This
la presión
usually
intraocular.
is directly related to
Para que
an
aumente la presión
hypertension
intraocular,
of the
puede haber
eyeball.
dos causas,
To have an
que aumente la
increase
secreción
in
y que
ocular
disminuya el
tension
drenaje.
or intraocular pressure, you might
En la
have
imagen
two
de arriba
potential causes, increase of
tenemos
secretion or
un
reduction of the
diagrama del
drainage.
ojo con un
Here you
cuadro
can see
en
the
rojo
eyeball,
que
you
va
see
a
the
ampliarse
red
más
area
abajo,
that is
donde
bigger
vemos
on the second image,
donde se
where we
origina
can
el
see
humor acuoso
exactly
y
where
donde
we
se
have the
evacúa.
aqueous humor and
Los
where is the
procesos
drainage
ciliares
going to.
están detrás del iris,
Now, the
entre el
different
iris y el
processes
cristalino
between the
son los
crystalline
encargados
lens
de
and
segregar
the
este líquido
llamado humor acuoso,
The iris is this area which is the aqueous humor, and you can see how it should be secreted between iris and cornea.
se va produciendo humor acuoso,
And as we produce more aqueous humor, we regenerate what is on the anterior chamber and the posterior chamber, and we keep a constant flow of regeneration and drainage. But if there is a reduction in this drain, you will have more aqueous humor inside the anterior chamber of the eye. And if you increase the secretion, if you open up the top a little bit more, if you like, then we will have the problem in the posterior chamber. You have two types of glaucoma, acute and chronic.
Aquí hay una imagen
Here you have another image that shows quite clearly the increase of pressure inside the eye, the intraocular pressure that is transmitted inside the eye. We see it through the vitreous humor and how it falls on the retina, and especially how it damages the optic nerve.
¿Qué sucede cuando la presión de una zona es superior?
So what happens when this pressure is stronger inside than outside? It means that nothing will flow inside.
Hay mucha presión,
If you have too much pressure inside, nothing from outside will come inside, because you will need to use more force to do so, because we get the optic nerves, and the optic nerves and the area where the blood flow should come inside the eyeball. But we have this high intraocular pressure, the blood flow will be affected, and this will affect immediately the cells of the retina, and this can produce a problem in that blood supply and in that retina cells. So here you can see the different ciliar processes that look like fingers, you can see it. And these are the places where we will get the aqueous humor secretion. The most common type is the chronic glaucoma. Really, this is affectation, a disease that has to do with the optic nerve. It is a progressive optic neuropathy. There are three important factors to consider here. First of all, the intraocular pressure. Second, the appearance of the optic nerve, and the perimetry. And we're going to be talking about these different areas. There is this idea that the chronic glaucoma is nothing more than an ocular hypertension. It's true, there is that problem, because we can have that high pressure, blood pressure inside in the intraocular area. But you can also have other problems, because every single one has a different blood pressure and a different intraocular pressure, just like we have different colors in our eyes and we have different skin color. And the fact that you might have a normal intraocular pressure does not mean that you are not in a case where you have a Gauss curve to be taken into consideration. So in the chronic glaucoma, you might see some patients with ocular hypertension and others with a perfectly normal intraocular pressure, although ocular hypertension it's much more common. So blood pressure and intraocular pressure is not the only information that we should check. Here we see, for example, the beginnings of the optic nerve. When we are analyzing the eye, we can see this information, and we see the optic nerve.
Reúne todas las fibras de la retina para
And we see here all this information, how this information goes through the optic nerve up to the visual cortex. And here you can see seems like a white circle. This is the excavation, the physiological excavation. Everyone has one. But if you see the photo on the right, it's a bigger excavation. Size here is a problem, because the size of the excavation matters. If we have a very big excavation, means that there are some cells in the retina that are already dead and are not sending their axons through the optic nerve to the visual cortex. So it's important to analyze the excavation size as well.
Y el tercer factor a considerar sería la consecuencia del
And
segundo,
finally, we also have here what
que es
happens.
el estudio
So we
del
need
campo
to
visual,
study the visual
o lo que
field,
llamamos campimetría.
which usually is called perimetry.
Aquí, con esta prueba, se hacen como unos mapas de
And
las células
here
de
we
la
create a
retina
map
que están
of the different
vivas,
cells in the
corresponden al
retina,
estímulo de la luz y las que
retina,
no. Y las
and
que
we see
así,
which
así.
ones are alive, which
Y unas
ones are
veces
not,
sí, otras veces
and
no.
we can see some of the
Entonces, en
information.
negro oscuro se puede
In the
ver en
dark
el diagrama
colors,
de la
we can see in the
derecha
diagram on the
la
right
zona que se
the
considera
areas
de células muertas.
where we find
zonas
some dead
grises
cells
y
in the
dependiendo del
gray
nivel de
areas,
gris,
and
vemos
depending
las
on the
células que
darkness of
están
that
más
gray,
o menos
we will see the
afectadas.
cells that have
Y
been
en blanco
affected more or
son las
less,
células
and then
que
in
están
white we will
fenomenal,
find those
que
cells that are perfectly
responden a todos
healthy
los estímulos
and
de luz.
are responding
Se
to all the
utilizan
different
distintos
stimuli
tamaños
that they are
e
receiving.
intensidades
So we see
de
different
punto de luz
sizes
para detectar
and in terms of points of
detalles en
light
el
to
campo visual.
detect all the
Así
different
pues,
information
utilizamos
that
de
is
las tres
captured and
partes, de los tres
transmitted through the
factores para
visual field.
decir
So
si una
these are some
persona
of the
tiene
areas that
glaucoma. No solo la
we
presión,
study to
no
see
solo la
exactly if
excavación,
someone has a glaucoma. So we
pero
find excavation size,
considerando
we
la
find
presión, la
intraocular
excavación, el
pressure,
nervio óptico,
and
podemos
also
llegar
we
a la
analyze the
conclusión.
cells in the retina and the optic nerves.
Causas del glaucoma.
Now,
¿Por qué tenemos
we
glaucoma?
know what
¿Por qué las
glaucoma is, but
personas
why
tienen
do we have glaucoma? Why people have this disease?
Hay autores que
There are
apuntan
possible causes. Some
que es-
authors have
pero estos
mentioned
autores son todos de nuestro bando.
these are all our
Meir Schneider,
authors,
Roberto
Snyder,
Kaplan,
Roberto Kaplan,
y otros muchos que
as well
estudian la
as
visión natural.
others that are
Por
studying
ejemplo,
natural
el
vision.
desequilibrio del
For
uso de ambos
example,
ojos puede llegar
imbalance using both
a
eyes.
generar presión
This
más
can
en un ojo que en
increase
otro.
the intraocular
Usar
pressure
poco la
in one
periferia
eye more
y
than in the
utilizar en
other.
exceso la
Little
visión
use of
natural
periphery and
también
an
es un
excess of
factor que
use of
termina
central vision.
atrofiando las células de
This
la
can
periferia y
also cause
desgastando la zona
atrophy
central,
in the periphery
la
cells,
ansiedad, el nerviosismo,
anxiety,
el
to be
estrés.
nervous, to be
El
stressed.
glaucoma,
Glaucoma
en cuyo origen está el agua
that
que
has its
fluye,
origin
si
in
fluye
the flow of
adecuadamente o no
water,
fluye
if the flow
adecuadamente,
is
si se
adequate
estanca
or
o no se
not,
estanca,
if we have
tiene que ver con las
stagnated flow
emociones.
or
Todos
not,
sabéis
has a
la
lot to do
relación
with
que existe
emotions.
entre
You
los
all
fluidos y las
know
emociones.
how fluids and emotions
Cuando
are
no expresamos las
interconnected.
emociones,
When we do
cuando
not
nos las
express our
guardamos,
emotions, when we
cuando
store
tenemos
things
frustración,
inside, when we're highly
también
frustrated,
puede aumentar la presión
we
intraocular.
can increase our
Cuando
intraocular
sentimos mucha
pressure
presión en
when we're
nuestra vida,
highly
puede
stressed
ser a
in
nivel
our everyday
familiar, a
life
nivel
due
de
to our family
trabajo,
problems or
en el
work
mundo en el que nos
issues,
relacionamos,
because
en
of
el
the
ámbito
way that
social.
we have a social life.
También otra posibilidad es que
Another
estemos comiendo
possibility
inadecuado,
is that we don't have an
que
adequate
estemos tomando
diet.
demasiados estimulantes
Maybe
como el
we
café.
have too much coffee.
La adicción al trabajo también puede ser
Maybe
una
we
causa.
are
Y si
workaholics.
tenemos relaciones poco
And if
satisfactorias,
we don't
puede
have
ayudar.
satisfactory relationship, that might also be another cause.
¿Qué consecuencias tiene en
What
el
are the
ojo el glaucoma?
consequences
Una
of
vez visto
glaucoma in the eye?
qué es el glaucoma,
Now
vamos a
that we
ver
know
cómo
what it
se
is,
manifiesta en el
well,
ojo.
what are the manifestations of
Pues,
glaucoma in the eye?
como llega poca sangre, porque no
Because
le dejamos
we
entrar
don't have a lot of
suficiente
blood
desde la
flow
arteria central de la retina,
that comes
puede
from
haber
the
un
central
muerte
artery of
de los
the retina.
fotorreceptores, que son los conos y los
We
bastones,
have
por falta de
the death from
oxígeno.
lack of oxygen to the
Con lo cual,
photoreceptors.
hay
We're
un
talking here
estrechamiento
of rods and
progresivo del
cones,
campo
basically.
visual. Las
So
células que
obviously
van a
there's a
morir
progressive
primero
narrowing
son
of
las
the
de la
visual
periferia.
field. And those
Pero
cells in the
también
periphery will
vamos a
be the first
encontrar
ones to go.
zonas en las que
We
también
will also have other areas
hay pérdida de
where
células
we
y
will
se
see
llaman
some
escotomas.
scotomas,
Y pueden
which
estar
means
dispersos
losing
a lo
cells, and these
todo
can
el
be
campo
scattered
visual.
throughout the visual
El
field.
nervio óptico, como
The
consecuencia de la
optic
muerte
nerve,
de los
due
fotorreceptores, va
to the
sufriendo
death
una
of the
atrofia
photoreceptors,
progresiva.
will have a progressive
Y
atrophy.
esto nos
And
conduce
this will lead us
finalmente a una
finally
visión
to a
en túnel,
resulting
como si
tunnel
miráramos por
vision.
un tubo.
We will always
Solo
be looking
vemos
through a
aquello
tunnel,
que enfocamos.
and we will only be seeing those things that we
Como
can actually
tratamiento
focus
para el
on.
glaucoma,
The
en la medicina
treatment
tenemos
in
el
medicine
tratamiento médico, que son gotas, todos
are a
conocéis,
series
las
of
gotitas
drops.
por la
You
mañana,
probably
por la
know those.
noche.
You use the
Y
drops
si
in the
esto no
morning, you
funciona,
use it in the
se
evening,
opera.
and if it
Tratamiento
doesn't work,
quirúrgico.
then surgery is the
Pero
option.
¿hay algo más?
But do we
Yo
have
creo que
something
sí.
else to treat the
Podemos
glaucoma?
trabajar con el
I
método
think we
Bates.
can also work with the
¿Y qué
Bates
tenemos que
methods.
hacer en el
And
método
what should we
Bates?
do
¿Qué es
there?
lo que más sufre?
What is the
La
area that
periferia
suffers
primero,
more?
pues
Periphery
vamos a
first of
estimular la
all.
visión
Then
periférica.
we should
Y nos
focus
vamos a dar
on
cuenta de que estos
periphery
clientes,
stimulation. We
pues,
will
no
see that
utilizan la
these
visión
clients
periférica,
are not
la tienen
using periphery
descuidada.
vision
Así
as
que
much as they
vamos a
should.
estimularla
So let's
con
stimulate
los
this.
diversos juegos que
Let's
van a
use the
ofrecer
different
nuestros
games
colegas
that we
aquí,
will see today. For
con paseos
example,
nocturnos,
we will have
porque
some
en
night
la
walks
oscuridad
because in
la
the
mácula
dark
no
the
funciona.
macula is not
Lo que se
working.
activa.
So
es la
we have to
periferia.
activate the periphery.
Haremos palming para
We will also
relajar los
use
ojos,
palming
porque
to
sabemos que
relax
están
the
muy
eyes
tensos.
because we know there's a lot of stress there, and we will do it in short periods, 10 minutes. And we will also alternate this with sunning,
buscando periodos cortos.
trying to do this in
Otras
short
cosas que
periods.
podemos hacer. Necesitamos estimular el corazón
We
y la
need to
circulación.
stimulate blood
Ejercicio
pressure.
al aire
So,
libre, importante.
fitness and exercise,
Como
outdoor
diría May,
exercise,
el cuello,
better
hay
than
que liberar el
everything
cuello.
else. And
Liberar el
to
cuello
release
y
the
masajear,
tension in the
masajear
area
mucho
of
la
the
cara
neck and
y el
shoulders.
cuerpo.
So, a lot of face and body massage.
Y dejamos por aquí el glaucoma. Nos vamos al cristalino. Cristalino
We're going into
es
the
la
crystalline
lente que se
lens.
encuentra detrás del iris
So this
que
is
nos
the
ayuda a
lens
enfocar.
behind the iris, and this helps
una
us to
lente
focus.
muy
This
poderosa,
is
que
a
tiene una
very
forma
powerful
biconvexa
lens. It's a
y nos ayuda a
biconvex
enfocar.
lens
Tiene
that
varias
helps us
capas.
to focus.
De
It has
fuera adentro
different layers.
está la cápsula,
We
después la
have the
corteza
capsule,
y
we have the
después el
bark,
núcleo.
and then finally the
Ahí
core.
vemos también la situación
Here you can
de
see
la
also
lente en el ojo.
where it is located in the eyeball.
¿Qué síntomas encontramos
What
en una
are the
catarata?
symptoms
¿Cómo
of
es una persona?
cataracts?
¿Qué nos dicen las personas
What
que
do
tienen
people
catarata?
tell us when they
Empiezan
have these
teniendo
problems?
una
First
visión
of all,
borrosa.
they experiment, they
Luego se
just
deslumbran,
have some
las
blurry
cosas se
vision.
deslumbran.
Then the
Los
lights,
colores,
they
ellos no se
are
dan cuenta,
completely
pero
blinded
empiezan
by
a percibir mal
lights,
los
by
colores, porque es una
strong
cosa
lights.
lenta.
Then there's a change of color perception,
Según
but
el
it's a
tipo de
slow
catarata,
process.
también
It
puede haber
depends a lot
visión
of the
doble.
type,
La imagen
and
se
in some
puede
cases you
desdoblar.
can have double vision as
Y
well.
curiosamente, la
And funny
catarata
enough,
miopiza el ojo.
this
Nos
tends
hace un
to
poquito miopes. Es muy típico
increase the
que te venga una
nearsightedness in the
persona
eye.
mayor
A lot of
a la
older
consulta y te diga,
patients come
doctora,
to
doctora,
the
estoy
practice and say,
mejorando, porque
I'm
ahora
feeling
ya no
better.
necesito mis
I
gafas
don't
para
need
ver
my
de
glasses
cerca.
to
Y es que
to
tiene
see
cataratas.
something that
Y
is
entonces,
near.
como se ha
And
miopizado
usually
el
the
ojo,
problem is
contrarresta
that they
la
have
presbicia.
cataracts. So now
No se dan
the
cuenta
nearsightedness
porque no conducen
has
o porque no se
given
fijan
a
que han
kind
perdido
of
visión de lejos.
solution
Las cataratas,
to the
según su
problem that they had at
clasificación,
that time.
pueden ser por la edad, senil,
So,
por un golpe, traumática, cuando se nace con ellas, congénita, o
they
también
have
asociada a
presbyopia.
otras enfermedades,
So,
como pueden ser
it
problemas
also has, for
de tiroides,
example,
enfermedades
connections to other
profesionales,
potential problems. It can be due to the fact that it's a senile patient, it's a traumatic situation, it can be congenital or related to other diseases like diabetes. Here you see the different types of the cataracts that we mentioned. So we have the cortical ones, the congenital ones, the central ones, core ones. The final one is a core one. On top of that, we can see cortical one. The two first ones are congenital ones. And in other cases, we can find it with some infection.
¿Qué puede causar una catarata?
What can cause a
Hay causas
cataract?
tóxicas,
Well,
el
there's
tabaco,
toxic
el
causes,
alcohol, ciertos
like, for
fármacos,
example, tobacco consumption, alcohol
exposición
consumption, or drugs.
exagerada a los
It
rayos
can be also
ultravioleta.
if you have had
También
an
de
excessive
un
exposure to
enfermedades
UV
metabólicas
ray
o
lights, and
enfermedades
also
laborales.
aging, metabolic
Enfermedades
diseases, and
metabólicas puede ser,
occupational
por ejemplo,
hazard.
una diabetes.
In terms of
Las
metabolic
enfermedades laborales,
diseases, you can
los
find
soldadores
diabetes,
tienen
but
más
for example, if you are a
predisposición
welder,
si no utilizan
then
una
you will
protección
have
adecuada,
problems if
tener
you had not protected your
cataratas por el
eyesight
efecto
properly.
de la luz.
So, because they are in
El tratamiento de
constant
la
contact
catarata
with
en la
very bright
medicina
lights, they
solo
suffer
es
from that in the
quirúrgico.
long process. The treatment
Pero
offered by
hay
medicine is
muchas
just a
más cosas que
surgical
se pueden
option.
hacer.
But there's so much more than we
Trabajando
can
con el
do,
método
isn't it?
Bates,
Working with the
podemos
Bates
ayudar a
method,
relajar
we
los
can
ojos.
relax
El
the
doctor Bates
eyes.
decía que la
Dr.
catarata
Bates
genera
used to say that
tensión,
cataracts are
haciendo
also
palming,
stress,
haciendo
so
sunning,
palming,
mirando a lo
sunning,
lejos,
looking away
con
in the far
relajación.
distance, but with
Buscar los
relaxation,
detalles con
to
la
try to find the
centralización
details by
y estimulando la
centralization,
visión periférica,
stimulating
todo ello puede
peripheral
llevar a una
vision.
mejor relajación.
These will all
Y el
increase our
cristalino
relaxation
podrá
level,
regenerar
and the
su
crystalline
forma.
lens will be able to regenerate its
Otras cosas que
original
pueden
shape.
ayudarnos es mejorar la
Something
circulación
else
de los
that can help,
ojos,
well, we can
liberar el cuello.
improve
Esto
our
va
intraocular
de
pressure,
serie
the
en
blood flow
todas
in
las
the eyes,
enfermedades.
and
Liberar
this
el
will
cuello,
help. This helps
ejercicio,
every single
masajes,
time to improve the eye movement, to release the neck
pero también hay
tension,
causas
to use the massage,
emocionales o
to
psicológicas que
exercise
pueden
outdoors,
afectar
as
a
well
la
as all the
persona y
different
producir una u otra
specific
enfermedad.
causes that have to
La
do
emoción
with each
principal suele
specific
ser el
person.
miedo.
Emotions are important here, and the key emotion here is fear. So some of our questions here have to do with the kind of questions that we should ask the patient to see if they feel identified by these questions. Like, for example, sometimes they're not aware of what is going on, but if you make the adequate questions, are you clouding your life by keeping yourself way too busy? Are you carrying the past baggages in your present and future? Is your house full of unnecessary belongings that are part of your past? Are you scared of letting go? Is your communication clear or not clear at all? Are you able to fulfill your commitments, to persist in your aims and objectives? Because we need to know if we're doing this right, and if we're not, if we wish to, we can change. Retina. This is the nervous system of the eye. It's the layer that covers the whole eye, and I have done a summary because we cannot mention every single problem that the retina can have, but we have retinal detachment, we have macular degeneration, as well as other retinal problems. Now, retinal detachment. When this happens, the separation takes place between two different layers of the retina. There are 9 different layers between fibers, cores, cells. The first neuron, which are the photoreceptors, the first layer, are like small fingers in the middle of a globe, which are the rods and cones, and they are fitting in the neuroepithelium. They get their nutrients from there. This is the most fragile part of the retina, and when you have a detachment, it will happen because the separation takes place between the rods and the cones and the neuroepithelium. Or pigmented epithelium, because the retina is transparent except in this area. The pigment epithelium has an orange color. So when we are usually analyzing this area, we can see this orange reflection. So when we analyze the eye fundus, we see this. So when we know that the detachment happens in this place, we have to analyze what is this retinal detachment, what are the causes. Well, there are different areas. We talk about the rhegmatogenous, which is a really difficult word to say, but it's the official term. That means detachment by sudden pulling. There's a sudden pull that breaks the retina, and then is when we see how it gets detached little by little. What can cause this? What can make this happen? A high myopia. You have a lot of problems when you have a patient with a lot of diopters. And then you also see, for example, the degeneration of the vitreous body and a potential trauma. Here you can see it, a detachment by vitreous pool. You can see the vitreous, you see the retina, and you see how the chamber is completely full. Then you see the posterior vitreous detachment, that is a contraction. We start to see the floaters in the vitreous humor, and then you can see the retinal detachment, because by moving your head, you can see these floaters moving around, and because there's not that way of having things in the proper place, the liquid will start detaching the rest of the retina. The fluid. You can see it here, the fluid moves. And here, for example, you can see this detachment by vitreous pool happens usually in the periphery. Which are the symptoms? Well, first of all, light flashes, the soot rain, that feeling that you have a veil over your eyes. In some of the parts of the visual field, you will see there's a lack of vision. How can you treat this? With laser treatments, with cryotherapy, or basic surgery. When there's just one small little part that
como en la parte de abajo,
you can see a small hole, you can see it here. It's like a tiny hole.
quemando la retina
Usually
alrededor
the
del
laser
agujero,
burns the area around the hole and seals the whole area so there's no further detachment and avoids the fluid to move from one place to the other, favoring the hole detachment. Once you have a hole detachment, you need surgery.
Así que en el desprendimiento de
Now,
retina, la zona
in
afectada
retinal
es la retina
detachment, the affected
periférica,
area in the eye
fundamentalmente.
usually is the peripheral
Dependiendo de su
periphery
gravedad, se
retina.
puede extender
Depending
al
on the
resto de la
severity,
retina.
it can affect the
¿Qué
entire
podemos hacer con el
retina.
método BASE?
What can
El
we
primer
do
método,
with
equilibrar
the Bates
la visión
method
central con
in
la
these
visión
cases?
periférica,
First of all, to balance central and
utilizando
periphery
un
vision,
parche central
using
para
normally a
estimular
central
la
patch
periferia
to
y dejar
stimulate
descansar
periphery vision
la zona
and to
foveal.
leave the central part
También
more
podemos relajar
relaxed
con el
and
palming, con
calm.
el sunning,
We can also do relaxation
utilizar
by
todas las
palming
técnicas
and
que conozcamos
sunning,
para
using all
periferia,
the techniques
movimiento
that we
aparente,
already know in terms to improve and
paseos
stimulate periphery
nocturnos,
vision,
etcétera.
night walks, apparent
¿Qué
movement,
emoción
outdoor
podríamos
activities. What kind of
encontrar en este
emotions do
problema
we
ocular?
see when you have a patient with this particular
La
issue?
periferia
Usually,
nos relaciona con el mundo que nos
periphery
rodea.
is the way we
La visión
relate
periférica nos hace
ourselves
ver
with
lo
the
que está fuera de
world that
nosotros,
surrounds
no lo
us.
que
It
enfocamos.
helps us to see what
Muchas
surrounds us,
veces
not
estas
just the
personas se
things that we
encuentran
actually want to focus on.
separadas del mundo
And these
exterior
people feel
y
detached
se
from the
encierran
world
en sí
around.
mismos,
And they are completely
descuidando sus
closed.
relaciones.
They don't want to have very good relationships.
¿Y qué preguntas podría hacerse una persona que tiene desprendimiento?
And what are the questions that you can ask
¿Tienes
people
una
that have this kind of retinal detachment? Do you have a limited or narrow perspective of life?
de la vida? ¿Te resulta difícil
Do you
acceder a tus
find it
sentimientos?
difficult to
¿Estás
access your
demasiado
feelings?
centrado en tu mente, en
Are
la
you too
razón?
focused on mind and reason?
¿Tu vida tiene un enfoque demasiado material?
Do you have a very material approach in your life?
Otro problema de retina es la degeneración macular y cambiamos
In terms of
al centro de
macular
la retina.
degeneration, we move
La
from
fovea.
the periphery
El
into
centro de
the
la mácula
center of the
toma
retina.
su
We now
nutrición
in
de
the
la
fovea,
coroides,
and
de la
here
zona que está por
is the
debajo
center
de
of
la
the
retina.
macula, takes its nourishment from the
Es la
choroid.
única parte del
Here
ojo que no
is
recibe
the only place in the eye
nutrición de la
where
arteria
we
central de la
don't
retina.
get the nutrients
Porque
from
aquí
the
la
central
retina es más
artery
fina
of the
y la
retina,
piel
because
tiene
this is
mayor
the place
necesidad
where
de
the retina is
nutrientes.
thinner, but it's also the place
En la
that
foto
has
de
the
arriba
higher
vemos
nutrients
lo que
needs
es la
and
fovea,
requirements. You can see here the
esa
fovea.
zona
This is this
más honda en el centro de la mácula,
kind of
donde los
B shape, and
axones
on one of
de
the
las
sides of
células
that B
nerviosas
shape,
se
we can
separan
see
para que la
basically
luz
where
llegue
the axons
directamente
are
al
separated
fotorreceptor,
so that the
porque aquí
light
es
can
donde
get
vemos
straight to the
mayor incidencia de
photoreceptors,
la fovea,
and this is
solo
where
hay
we
conos.
see that we
Y en
only
la imagen
have
abajo podemos ver
cones
una
here.
zona negra cuando
And
hacemos una
then
exploración
when we're
inyectando
exploring
un contraste
using, for
fluorescente
example, fluorescent
en
contrast,
las
we
arterias.
see here the different
La zona
arteries,
negra es
and then
donde
there's
no
like a
llega
black
este
spot.
contraste.
This is the
Y
place
esta
where the
zona
contrast
precisamente
is
es la
not
mácula,
getting there
porque
because
no
there's no
recibe
arteries,
nutrición
and this is the macula that
de
does
las
not receive the
arterias de la
nutrients
retina.
from the different arteries
Recibe la
in the
nutrición de la parte
retina.
inferior de la
It,
coroides.
it receives the nutrients from the choroid.
Hay dos tipos de degeneración. Todos la conocéis, la degeneración húmeda
There are
y la
two
seca.
different
La
types of
húmeda
degeneration. We have
se
the
aguda,
wet
se
one,
producen
which is more
hemorragias
acute.
y
We
puede
have
suceder a
bleeding.
cualquier
It can
edad,
happen at
mientras que
any
la
age.
seca
And then
es
the dry
crónica,
one, or seca, is a
sucede
chronic
a lo
one
largo de
and is
años,
degenerative.
es un
It
tipo
takes a long
degenerativo
process
y se da más en personas
and it's more
mayores.
frequent in elder patients.
¿Qué causas podemos encontrar
What
en
can
la
be the
degeneración
possible or
macular?
potential causes of
Volvemos a lo
macular
mismo.
degeneration?
Este es un mal de nuestra
Well,
época, el
this is
exceso de
something
visión
that
central,
happens again because we
en
have
detrimento
too
de la
much
visión periférica.
central vision and we
Hacemos
tend
demasiado
to
uso de la
forget
visión
the
central.
peripheral vision. We
Dedicamos
have an
demasiado
excessive
tiempo a
use of central
pantallas,
vision. We're
ordenadores,
focused on
tabletas,
the tablets,
teléfonos,
the
lectura,
mobile phones,
televisión,
the
escuelas,
screen
estudios,
at home, at
demasiado
work,
tiempo.
at the school,
No está
everywhere. Too many
proporcionado al uso
hours.
que hacemos
There's
al
no
exterior, con un
proportionate
campo visual
comparison
amplio,
between the
utilizando
time
la
that we spend with the
periferia,
screen and the
viendo
time that we're
colores,
outdoors,
tres dimensiones.
watching the
El uso
landscape
excesivo
and
de
whatever
visión
surrounds
central
us.
siempre va en detrimento de la visión
This
periférica.
excessive
Si
use of
lo
central
unimos
vision
al
usually
estrés que
means that
producen todas
we
estas actividades
ignore and
y al
forget
uso
the
de
peripheral
gafas,
vision.
que
And if
aún
we are
potencia
using
más el uso de la
glasses,
visión central,
we are stimulating
junto
central vision even
con
more.
dejar la mirada fija
and the fact that
en
we
un punto
tend
u otro
to
raro,
keep our eyes fixed on one specific place, we tend to stare a lot for a long period of times. This causes a lot of problems. So what can we do with the Bates method? Relax, relax, and relax. Palming, sunning, palming again, micro characters, walking. We can use peripheral vision when we're walking at the same time, looking in the far distance to centralize. Try to use the macula in the adequate way, finding details, trying to find colors, and also using the movement, because we need to move. We need to do swings, stimulation of the peripheral vision by sweeping our eyes through different places, following apparent movement. This is a diagram that is called the Amsler reticulum that basically offers us, through this grid, and the way of seeing the different points. We focus on the central point, and then we see the different lines in the grid. This is what someone that has an early macular degeneration will see. Usually we will see parallel lines in the grid in both directions, but this helps us to have an accurate diagnosis when we have a patient with an early macular degeneration. We have another issue here that is quite important in the macula, is the exudative detachment. This is not a degeneration. This is a detachment due to the accumulation of fluid, and it's also called the macular edema. Here, the problem is that there is a failure in the mechanism that pumps the fluid between the retina and the choroid. As we mentioned, the photoreceptors get the nutrients from the choroid. So we pump that blood between the retina and the choroid, and the waste products have to be drained from there. But when that pumping method does not work, the waste product gets all accumulated, and we get an atrophy of these cells as a result. The treatment to these kind of problems usually is to use anti-inflammatory drugs or laser. But what are the causes of this macular edema? Well, usually vascular diseases like diabetes, inflammatory processes, and sometimes after an eye surgery, you might develop this kind of edema. On the right, you will see some photos. They are very nice. And you will see, for example, a normal photo where we can see the OCT and we can see the macular area. The second image shows that the layers have been separated, that there's fluid in the middle. You see it even more clearly in the other one. So this is the OCT and optical coherence tomography. So how can we solve this? By the weights methods. Well, we can use relaxation, palming and sunning, stimulating the periphery again, and visualization. And that will be it. So thank you very much for your time and attention, and I hope you have enjoyed it.